So today we're talking about building natural immunity. And I never thought that would be a controversial topic.
Yeah. Immunity is such a buzzword right now. You hear it everywhere. Everyone is looking for immunity. Everyone's really looking for answers.
Are they though? I mean, it seems like immunity is now all of a sudden, you can't actually achieve it unless, there's a one size fits all model to achieving immunity now. Mm-hmm. Like there's no conversation about whether someone has had COVID or not and whether they could possibly be immune to it because of that. It's almost like that doesn't even matter.
Oh yeah. It's immunity outside of self is what it is.
So I want to just take us back a little bit to, 2 years ago. Let's say 2 years ago when immunity was a thing and what you eat mattered. and what you exposed yourself to created antibodies. Remember that?
Hardly.
Right. If I'm an employer 2 years ago, and as terms of employment, let's say I say, hey, in order for you to work here, you're going to have to build your immune system to keep us all safe. You're going to have to take supplements. And not just any supplements that you choose, the ones that I choose for you. There's 3 options. You can choose any of those 3. You're going to have to eat a certain way, and you're going to have to minimize what you're exposed to as far as toxins. I do need you to exercise on a regular basis. And that's the terms of employment. And oh, by the way, you can't gain weight because gaining weight creates you being a carrier. Those who are highest risk of COVID were overweight and had on average 2.4 comorbidities as a reminder. So what if I did that as a terms of employment 2 years ago?
Oh yeah, that wouldn't have gone by. People would not have stood for that.
Why? Because it'd be discrimination.
Absolutely.
It would be, it wouldn't be inclusive enough. I would have labor, like the labor department would be coming after me. Mm-hmm. So what's changed in 2 years where all of a sudden it's now acceptable for an employer not just to incentivize a one-size-fits-all model of healthcare, the current gene therapy that we're calling a vaccine, but now they're putting on a $50 tack on to their paycheck if they don't get it for the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So now if somebody doesn't get it, they have $50 deducted from their paycheck. Mm-hmm. In some companies, our company will never do that.
Yeah, which is so wrong in and of itself. I mean, for months now, for the past 18 months, they've tried kind of the carrot method, put the rewards out there, whether it be donuts or Happy Meals or whatever it is to incentivize people. But with the rate of vaccination plateauing right now, they're realizing that that's not working. And so instead of employing the carrot, let's use the stick. Let's punish the people who are not participating.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going to end up, but I do know that people are getting tired of it.
Yeah.
I know people are beginning to say things like, well, I'm going to have to eventually anyway. Right. And I guess I can't help them in that way. I mean, I can't say what to do or what not to do. But what I can say is there's a whole lot of people who are saying that no, there's no chance. It's like a never going to. People say, well, once the FDA approves this, well, listen, the FDA approved Vioxx, just as a reminder. It killed more people than the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. The FDA has approved a lot of things that are not healthy and also that have no long-term studies of either benefit or risk. You look at this, the experimental gene therapy that we're calling a vaccine, and we have no idea what it's going to do long-term. This is going to take a lifetime to really know the effects, and they're not going to link the effects. Remember, they eliminated the control group. And most people don't realize this. In the studies, they eliminated the control group. And what does that mean? So there's a subset of people who got the vaccine and another subset of people who got it. Well, at the end of the study, they said it would be unethical to to not tell the people who didn't get the vaccine. And so they told them and gave them the option. And so what does that mean? It means that the control group was eliminated. We're the control group now. The people who are not getting it are the control group, because we don't know. We're not studying. They're not looking at the people who didn't get it long term to find out what are their rates of cancer now. What are their rates of fertility or infertility? They're not looking at this. And so, and the ACIP has even said that. That's the committee that approves or gives guidance to the approval of vaccine to get put on the childhood schedule. They said that we're going to do the post-market analysis, which the post-market analysis is the population.
Yeah.
And what are they using to do that? They're using VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Events Reaction Reporting System. And so,
with VAERS, studies have shown that only between 1 to 5% of adverse reactions are actually reported. So that's not a good sample size.
And they're so far behind. There are hundreds of thousands of reports that have not been input into VAERS that has not come through yet. And so if trust the science, follow the science, it's fine, but let's have good quality science, right? And let's not use manipulative or coercive techniques in order. Listen, I got a text from somebody who's they're in college, and the volleyball coach, she plays volleyball in college, and the volleyball coach sent her this text. And listen to this. This is about an 18-year-old getting the vaccine. Okay? And here's what the text said. Hey, ladies, a couple things. Just a heads up, if you have not gotten your COVID vaccine, you will be required to test. As a reminder, the athlete will be financially responsible for testing. The school will not be paying for it. And depending on the test, it could range from $300 to $900 for the semester. Now, you're talking to a college kid, $300 to $900 for a college kid. Being unvaccinated will also require that you are masked on campus. Keep in mind that any competition we missed this year due to COVID-related issues will be considered a forfeit and will not be rescheduled. So there's the shaming. So if we forfeit a game, it was because of you.
Yeah, support your team.
Not trying to convince you either way or tell you what to do. I would say you are, actually. But giving you this information could help you make an informed decision to understand your options to stay safe and healthy. It's all about staying safe and healthy, is it not? Well, let's talk about the risk of an 18-year-old dying of COVID. It's virtually zero.
Yeah.
You say, well, they're carriers, so we have to sacrifice the young to protect the old. That's never been something that we've considered in society, ever, to sacrifice the young for the old. And that's flawed science to begin with. If you're not infected with it, you're less likely to become a carrier of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to eventually get to building natural immunity, right?
Yes.
I do. I get it. But I think that this, there's so much overreach right now and so many problems with the assumptions that I don't think people understand. At the core of the issue is a fundamental belief that your body is flawed and needs something from the outside to trick the body into building an immune system. That's not the case. Your body is actually brilliant. It adapts to its environment. It adapts to stresses. It adapts to what we do to it on a day in and day out basis. And the brilliant thing about the body is that it's self-healing, self-regulating, self-governing itself constantly. And it's been doing that since the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And when people grasp that concept, it changes the way they view their health. It changes the decisions that they make for themselves. With all of this outside in, I mean, I think the past 18 months has been a great experiment of exactly what happens when we try to find health outside of ourselves. Everything that we're doing with this summertime resurgence of coronavirus, which, by the way, it's the summertime. Vitamin D levels are at an all-time high. We're able to go out and get exercise. Like, this should not happen with a virus that circulates all year long. The coronavirus is opportunistic. So that tells us that we have to look and see where we're giving it opportunity to infect us. But I mean, that aside.
And is it opportunistic because now we are attempting to control a virus? A virus is going to do what viruses do.
Exactly. And everything that we've done in the beginning that we're trying to do, again, masking up, social distancing, reinstating all of these policies, it didn't work the first time. What makes us think that it's going to work the second time around? The only reason people are going along with this is because of the coercion, just like that college student got.
Yep.
There is so much fear and there is so much information. We're taught to trust the science, but the CDC, the NIH, they're not even following science.
Right. Well, and it's going to take a new measure of courage. I was talking to somebody and they said, man, this generation is just so weak. And I paused for a second, and I mean, I agree that maybe this generation might be more soft, but I'm telling you, there's going to be some strength coming out of this generation that's never been seen before, because they're getting pushed and backed into a corner right now. And so they're going to have to consider their morals. They're going to have to consider what they actually believe in. And I think we're going to see the strongest generation come out of this, because this has never happened before. This level of coercion, manipulation. We used to say, hey, don't listen to the guy on the street that's trying to sell you and peddle you drugs. You remember that? Hey, kids, say no to drugs. Well, now we have volleyball coaches, head coaches at universities who are the kid on the street who are coercing somebody into taking this experimental drug.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, we're going to get to building natural immunity. We're going to get to it. But if you don't address this big thing here, this philosophical question of how do you take care of yourself, and what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your body? Then you're more likely to fall victim to the next gimmick. And I'm not calling this a gimmick. I'm saying there's lots of gimmicks out there in health and healthcare. There is. In natural healthcare too. How many supplements have you had advertised to you that you've seen that you're like, wow, that is just an absolute joke, right? I know I've seen this. And you have to know that your body is brilliant, that it's smart, it's intelligent. There's no pill, potion, or lotion that is buried in the belly of a whale so far down in the ocean that is a missing link and is the cure to all forms of disease, right? The cure to cancer is not found in the jungle in Africa somewhere in some berry that no one has ever touched before. It's not the cure to cancer. The cause is the cure. What's causing your cancer? What's causing the heart disease? What's causing the diabetes? It's what's causing all of these things. And so when you understand that the body is brilliant, it's always adapting, that there is a cause and effect in life, and especially in health, then you're more likely to dig in, press in, and get curious about what the problem is, what the real problem is.
Yeah. And I think that's the very first step. Whatever side of history you land on, asking those questions and finding the information for yourself, doing the research, that's where it all starts. Yeah. So this isn't an attempt to shame for whatever decision you have or have not made. The fact of the matter is, what we're talking about is that no matter what decision you've made, there cannot be divisiveness. I think that really that's been the greatest pandemic over the course of the past year, is the divisiveness, the separation of vaccinated and unvaccinated, those who have not. And really, like you were saying, when we come together and we seek the truth, that's when we're going to build a community and have more courage collectively.
That's right. Yeah, we don't stand for bullying.
Right.
Yeah, we don't stand for, I don't know, discriminatory practices. We do stand for acceptance, inclusion, not just tolerance, but inclusion, right? And I thought some of these things were not controversial. I thought those words were something we could all kind of lean on. And in this time, just realize, listen, your neighbor is not a threat to you. Your neighbor is not an enemy. Man, I sound patriotic here, but united we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah.
It really is. It comes down to this. And if we're going to pit, let's just call it what it is, the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, we're in for a world of trouble, because there are a lot of people who are very firm on both sides.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's great to sound patriotic. That's so much more patriotic than roll up your sleeve, do your part.
Yeah. Well, so if you have a philosophical understanding and there's a choice in the matter, and you believe your body to be brilliant, and to be smart and doing the right thing at the right time. And some people will challenge that and say, well, what about a fever? Remember, a fever's doing the right thing at the right time too. What about vomiting? Well, that's doing the right thing at the right time too. It may not be pleasant. There's a difference between if it's doing the right thing and if it's pleasant or not. The body is constantly doing the right thing. What about autoimmunity? Well, remember, the body is reacting to something that caused the immune system to turn on itself and attack itself. Still doing the right thing. There was an interference somewhere. And the amazing thing about autoimmunity is when you get curious about your autoimmunity, you tend to uncover some missing links that will then help you get better. And how many times have we seen autoimmunity issues turn around? It's insane. And so we can debate philosophically whether the body's always doing the right thing at the right time at another time. But just let's start with that assumption that it is. That the body is smart. You cut your leg and it heals. Then, okay, why is it one person gets sick and one person doesn't? Why is it that one person get exposed to the same virus, has a very different response and reaction to their neighbor or their friend or even their loved one, somebody even lives in the same household as them? Well, there's a reason for that. It's because your immune system is designed to react, and your immune system can be built up over time to get strong and healthy, and what you do does matter.
Yeah.
Take one example. Take a person who is going through cancer treatments. Okay. We all know cancer patients are more susceptible to viruses and bacteria and problems. Why? Because their immune system has been tanked. Right? So if a cancer patient's immune system can be tanked by the chemotherapy, by the substance that they're putting into their body, think about what you're doing on a day in and day out basis that can lower your immune system, that can tank your body. And it's not the onslaught of poison like chemotherapy, it's the daily dose that is the biggest problem. Some of those daily doses are not just, not chemotherapy, but it's the daily dose of things that cause your body to become inflamed, cause your body to react poorly. Like one of the biggest substances that what I'm about to say that everyone eats on a day in and day out basis or drinks is what? Sugar, right? So, we talk about it, but it's addictive, and people think that they probably don't eat or drink as much as they really do. But if you really want to build a strong immune system, sugar is your enemy to that.
Yeah. And think about it this way. If you were to drink a jug of poison, you would pretty much die on the spot, right? That's an immediate death. Well, what if we scale that back and you are ingesting a low level of poison, of toxins on a daily basis with your daily habits? You're not going to die immediately on the spot, but it is a slow, prolonged death. That's not an exaggeration. So when it comes to sugar, when it comes to the things you put in your body, if you're wanting to build your immune system, especially if you're already compromised, if you already have underlying diseases, if you have comorbidities, then sugar is absolutely the first thing that you cut out of your diet.
Yeah. And when you say comorbidities, I know that was a more common word in the last 18 months, but the biggest one is actually being overweight and obese. And if you're wanting to lose weight, if you're overweight and you're desiring weight loss, sugar is your enemy to that.
Absolutely.
It's going to keep you in that sugar burning mode and not fat burning. And so there's a lot of good reasons to just completely eliminate sugar from your diet. Some people want that tangible, that thing that they can see, the scale that looks different or the body that looks different, when they look in the mirror. And sugar will absolutely keep you heavy. Sugar is not just coming from the drinks and the candy, though.
Right. A lot of people will say, well, I don't eat candy. I don't eat donuts or cookies.
Right.
I don't eat sugar.
Right. But think about this. Bread, grains in general turn to sugar. You think about the rices, the pastas, and all these things, your body is converting that to glucose, to energy. Think about marathon runners. They have they carb load the night before. They don't do that. The really good ones don't do that anymore, just so you know. But the thought was that they could have storage of glycogen so that they could use that storage of glycogen during the race. Well, how many people are carb loading for no event? right?
Yeah.
and they go to their work and they sit and and then it's again the next day and again the next day. You've got to deplete your glycogen storage. What does that mean? That means you have to use that stored glucose and use that, and then your body can start using other sources of fuel. And when you do that, your body starts to turn on hormonally things that will help you burn fat long term and tells your brain that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Think about our ancestors. Our ancestors never just loaded up and loaded up and loaded up for no event to happen, right? They would go and they'd hunt and they'd gather and they'd look for, and they'd also have times of fasting. There'd be famines. There'd be times of feasting, right? There'd be times of that. And then there would be droughts. There'd be times when the animals were not plentiful. And so there'd be famines. And so they had this cyclical thing that would happen there of feast and famine. Well, we actually need that hormonally. We need times of feast and famine. And so for some people, intermittent fasting, so going times without food and doing that on purpose, will help to create a healthy dynamic or relationship with food in general, and will help your body kickstart hormonally with leptin and ghrelin and some of these hormones that will help your body actually burn fat. And it creates that hormonal switch, which is awesome, which will have a lifetime benefit if you keep doing that. And you can keep doing intermittent fasting. You can do for really for indefinitely. And what intermittent fasting is, there's different versions of this, but just to simplify this, it's times without food. So it's skipping dinner, or it's skipping breakfast, or it's in general, there's a 16 to 8 window where you go 16 hours a day without food, and then you have an 8-hour window with food.
Yeah.
Or you can do a 6-hour window with food. It's up to you. But that will help hormonally flip that switch. And then during that window of eating, guess what you don't consume? Sugar, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, but it's something that is, we just have such a unhealthy relationship with food in this country, and we wonder why we're so sick.
And intermittent fasting it's easier than it sounds, because you can count, if you sleep 8 hours a night, you can count that as part of your 16 fasting hours.
Exactly.
So it's not a full entire 16-hour day without food.
Yeah, the easiest to do is just wait till lunch to eat, right? And a lot of people will say, "Well, I already do that. You know, I don't have hunger in the morning anyway, so I intermittent fast all the time, Dr. Nick." Try eating in the morning and then not doing it at night. Try skipping dinner. So if you're a person who is like, "I naturally do that and I'm still overweight, I'm still struggling," just watch what happens when you eat first thing, kind of force that apple first thing in the morning, and then don't eat dinner. And yes, you will have a couple of nights where it's a little bit of rough sleep. Okay. Let's just call it what it is. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to turn your body around and flip that switch, that hormonal switch. But if you do that and give your body a chance, just watch what happens. Fat literally melts off of you, and you're building a strong immune system at the same time.
Yeah, it's a win-win. And it is a retraining process. I think that a lot of people need to have that mindset when they go into any time period when they're working on their health and they're changing their body. Healing takes time, and that's okay. That's exactly what your body is supposed to do. And
there's this idea of metabolic confusion too. Just to talk about this and touch on this, is it's good to throw your body a curveball every now and then. Okay, what do I mean by that? In baseball, there's a curveball, and it's a really good pitch because the batter doesn't know what's coming. It kind of looks the same, but it throws them off, right? Metabolic confusion works in the same way, where you change things up on a regular basis. Maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's seasonally, whatever that looks like for you, but doing the same thing all the time, your body will adapt to that, get very efficient at that. And it's great that your body's efficient. However, if it's super efficient, it's not going to need as much energy to do what it's doing. And if it's not needing as much energy, it's not burning as many calories, and it's easier to gain weight over time. Throw your body a curveball. Do intermittent fasting. Eliminate sugar. It's these little things over time. Ultimately, we're not just talking about a scale or numbers on a scale. We're talking about your body functioning at its best. And when your body's functioning at its best, your immune system is not boosted, it's functioning optimally.
Yeah. And I love the word that you used, adapt, because to me, your body's ability to be healthy, your body's ability to even live is solely dependent on how well it adapts to its environment. But if we are able to adapt to our environment, that is what allows us to live and thrive. If we are not, that's when we get sick and we get diseased and we're compromised. So when you're looking at your health, it's not necessarily if you feel good or you look good, but we're looking at how well your body is able to function and if your body is able to adapt to all of the external things. That's why we say that we have to look inside when it comes to health and immunity.